In your opinion, what aspect has been given too little attention in the public debate on autonomous weapon systems to date?
All right, thank you for the question. I do think that there are two key issues that are really not really public in these discussions. The first one would be Global South perspectives, of course, and this has been sort of taking root now because projects like the MeHuCo project have actually tried to put this to the forefront. But you could see that if you look at the CCW, if you look at other forums and cross-regional processes, you have a lot of Global South perspectives, Global South countries and individuals who are actually participating and who are being very progressive in these debates. But they're in academia, we don't really have them. So this is one key area that I think we should actually take note of. The second, I would say, is the effect of autonomous weapon systems on the victims themselves. We haven't really looked at these things. Usually people talk about how autonomous weapon systems affect strategic stability, how they affect competition when it comes to the US, China, Russia, and so forth, and how they change the battlefield. But then they don't really look at what happens with the victims. And I think with the conference that we've just had, there were now discussions on how this affects people who are affected, especially civilians. It's not just the enemy soldiers that are affected, it's also civilians, it's also various other people and infrastructures within particularly Global South spaces. So I feel like these are some of the key issues that are really neglected within these discussions, and we really need to take note of them.
And what important perspective does your research make visible?
To also build on what I've just said, I feel like my research now has moved the discussion towards how these weapons can affect especially people we call the other, and this is the global majority, so to say. And my research focuses on those perspectives. It actually, firstly, is based on the idea that technology is not neutral. It's a social construct. It's very linked to politics, to social dynamics, and to culture and all that. And we need to understand what other perspectives could be integrated within this discussion. And my research sort of pushes this discussion from the normal discussion that we have had in the past maybe 13, 14 years, where people are talking about the general effects and the legislations that could come out to deal with autonomous weapon systems. But we don't really have any idea about how other people who are not Western perceive autonomous weapon systems, how they are affected by them, what are the dynamics of what they live in, what are the dynamics of their experience with autonomy in weapons. So my research sort of tries to push the discussion towards that side, towards those kinds of perspectives. And I do hope it's going to take root in the coming few years, yeah.
And can you give an example for a specific perspective you are planning to do research on, or maybe you already have done research on?
I would say it runs in different strands. The first one is very practical, and I've been quite active in terms of the practice itself. It looks at how different systems that are within these discussions either include or exclude other people, and how inequality sort of plays out within this. So this is the first strand, and this has been I've studied what has been happening at the CCW, the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons at the UN, and I've looked at how inclusive the discussions have been. And within this, I've tried to understand the dynamics of making international law, and that includes the procedures themselves. What are the procedures that are in place, and how do they include or exclude others? And I've looked at generally substantive equality, looking at issues to do with how some states from the global south, for example, would not be able to participate because of global structural issues, and these have actually stopped them from participating, including issues to do with the non-availability of personnel to deal with some of the issues, issues to do with generally power politics within the forums, and that's one strand. And then the second one is very linked to that, but it's very theoretical. I'm trying to look at how the lives of people in the global south are viewed and how they are valued, and how then this affects the practices in how autonomy in weapons plays out in reality. And this is quite theoretical, because I deal with the idea of necropolitics, which is how death is managed. Some people are ascribed the right to death and sort of clustered into groups, and they are sort of dehumanized and reduced to numbers in general. And this for me is unacceptable, and I'm trying to use my research to understand then how these practices could be more humane, could be more inclusive, could be more considerate of different life worlds, different experiences in the world. Because my understanding is that people have understood autonomy in weapons from a very parochial and limited perspective, and this probably would help us to actually expand what we know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.